right. So we are ready to go. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Hello, I am Rosalind Brown with Your Wealth Guidance, where we help Black women create their roadmap to financial independence and identify the tools for success so you can live the life of your dreams on your own terms. And so today we have a dear friend of mine, Sherrie, Tennessee. She has 1,000 different special talents and skills. So we are just sharing one today. I know there are so many ladies within the group that have a number of talents and skills and so forth as well. And so something that you might want to do is write your own book. And so it is a great way to get your name out there. It's a great way to spread your knowledge and expertise. And so Sherrie has 16 years of experience in the spa industry, including the role of a massage therapist, nail tech, spa owner, speaker, writer, and professor. In addition to receiving multiple awards throughout her career, Sherrie's writings have been published in some highly respected industry outlets, and she has been asked to speak at many public forums. As a professor at Johnson & Wales University, she has provided leadership in the development and instruction of spa management courses on the topics of marketing, spa operations, human resource management, and so forth. Sherrie is completing a Ph.D. and holds a Master of Business Administration with a concentration in marketing and entrepreneurship. Ms. Tennessee is currently the Education Manager for Sandals and Education Director for SpaSOS. And so without further ado, I want to turn things over to Sherrie.
It's always so amazing when you hear someone kind of read your accolades and you're like, I did do all that. So I think it's so interesting when you talk about financial wellness and just the financial aspect of it. What you don't realize is, getting your story out there, one, it gets it off your chest. But my favorite email, and I'll tell everybody this, my favorite email comes from KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing. And it's an email that says, we just made a deposit in account. And so you have those royalties on that book as long as it's being published, especially in a digital platform. So I think this is a great kind of congealing of two worlds of being able to tell your own story, but also thinking about that financial aspect that you can then create generational wealth, because I'm going to continue to get that email as long as I have that book up there and you can do the edits and the updates. So with that, I have a little presentation that I put together on how to be able to write your own book. So there we go. You would think after 2 years of being in this world, we'd have it together. So how to write and publish your book. I strongly encourage everyone. And I love my quotes. So great authors are great readers. And one way to understand them is to read the books that they write. So we all have our favorite authors or, different kind of storylines or different aspects out there. And that's how we can create it. So you just did the whole bio, so I'm not going to go through that again, but I will show. So I have published 3 books. I have about 3 more in the pipeline. For me, it really has been self-publishing. And the reason why is I have this book, the first one that I launched, which was in 2016, How to Open a Day Spa, a 31-Day Guide. And I love Iyanla Vanzant. And she has a book. Where do I have it out here? It's the Acts of Faith. And every day is like a quote at the top, and then it has like a message, and then it has like a purpose for the day. And that was really the template for how to open a 31-day guide. By that point, I had probably been a massage therapist for about 15 years. I had opened spas, I had managed spas, and I was speaking at different spa shows, and people were curious as to wanting the cliff notes of how to open a spa. And if you think about a lot of these books, they're 200 and 300 pages. And I knew that people were not going to read that. They really just kind of wanted the meat of it. And so that's what this book was. And I sent it to a publisher and they were like, this isn't a book. And that was probably 2014. And I was devastated because I had probably been working on the book for 2 years by that point. And I think probably about the end of 2015, the feeling came back again, and it was like, this book needs to be out there. This needs to be shared. And I published in February of 2016. February is my publishing month for some reason. And it was like number 5 on Amazon for spa books. And here was this, this text that I had been told 2 years earlier wasn't a book. So that's what I love about self-publishing, is it really gives you the freedom to be in control of what you put out to the world. So How to Open a Day Spa was my first book. Love, Lost, and Truth Found was my second book. And this was actually a book signing. And I have to tell you, I'm going to be perfectly transparent. I had done the book and done the photo shoot. And then I get to the book signing, and there was this huge imposter syndrome that came up, like, how dare I be out here trying to sell this book? Or, and it's very personal. It's short stories, not all about me, poetry. And it was just kind of throwing myself out to the world, and I was not ready at that moment. So getting yourself ready for those book signings. And then COVID, people got COVID babies and COVID puppies. How to Write a Book was my COVID baby. And it was something, you have those friends, and you need those friends that are so honest. And I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but I wanted to do something more than what I was doing. And I got on a call with someone, and they were like, oh, how did you write your books? And, I just kind of thought of in passing and never really said anything more. And I had a call with a girlfriend. I had another opportunity, and she's like, are you really going to be the wine girl? And I was like, maybe. And she's like, well, what did people ask you in the podcast? And I said, well, how to write a book. And she's like, instead of being the wine girl, why don't you go write a book on how to write a book? So again, my books are short, to the point. They're kind of the meat of the story and not a lot of fluff. But it is on Amazon. So it's How to Write a Book, Everything That I Wish I Knew. So those are my 3, and probably about 3 more. I'm working on a memoir. I'm working on part 2 of Love, Lost, and Truth Found. And then I'm working on a wellness book as well. So a little disclaimer, please ask your questions. I've saved time at the end to be able to just kind of get your personal input and your personal questions. I'm going to do a bit of an overview, but I want to make sure that I hear your voice. I am an educator, so if you have questions in the middle, I can pause, hold my thought, answer your question before we move on. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So the agendas is what I used to write. These are some of the questions that I always get when it comes to how to write a book. Writing time to edit, reaching your audience, book cover creation, platform format, KDP platform. That is my preference. There's a lot others that are out there, but that's the one that I know the best. So I'm going to speak to what I know. Create the space for success. That goes back to that imposter syndrome, and then launch and promote your book. So again, I really do focus on self-publishing. I really feel like it gives you the tools and the power within your own hands. And then once you establish your credibility, you get following, you sell some books, or a few hundred or a few thousand, then you can go back and invest into the traditional publishing methods. So let's look at traditional publishing versus self-publishing. So they start off the same. You write the book, right? But for traditional, you're going to submit it to publishers. You hope and pray that it gets accepted, get sent a contract, publish your book to get to market, edited, formatted, and designed. What they don't tell you is that is a very expensive process. There are certain what is the word I'm looking for? There's certain criteria that have to be met. Like sometimes it has to be 50,000 words, which equates to about 250 to 300 pages, right? Whereas with self-publishing, you start with writing the book, you start publishing, you have your book edited, formatted, and designed, you choose where you want to publish it, and then you market it. So again, it puts a lot more of that control into your hands, and you can do it for a minimal investment, right? And you definitely will get it back. So let's talk about writing. Now, I'm old school. I am not a Mac person whatsoever. I don't have a Mac phone. I don't have an iPad. I am Android, do or die. But if you Google the best format to write, it is considered to be Word, especially if you're going to be uploading this into some of the other platforms. It's just a little bit user friendlier. So if you can download app to Word to Apple, I don't know, that's not my world, but that is the format that I use. The other thing that I use is I have my Android, my Samsung Notes. So I am famous for getting an idea at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I literally will roll over. And I know you're not supposed to sleep in the bed with your phone, but I do. But I roll over, I'll say what I have to say, and then I can expand about it. And I've literally written chapters at like 3 o'clock in the morning where it's just downloaded and just come. So usually what I'll do is if that's how I got it, then I'll forward it to my email and then I'll put it into Word. I love Word for a couple of things. One is that it kind of will tell you where your errors are, but it's not as bad as Grammarly. We'll talk about Grammarly a little bit. But the other thing that I love about Word is it will actually read the text to you. So I usually go about 3 or 4 editing steps. And it usually does start in Word, and then it wraps up kind of final on my end with it actually reading the text back to me. And that's what I said again about the phone. So people always ask me like, well, how do you write? Like, what is it that you do? And it's the hardest part is literally just sitting down and writing. And I love this quote. It says, I hate writing. I love having written. And that's how a lot of writers feel because you have to make this time to make it work. There's a site that I follow on Instagram, and she said something like she does like 860 words every day, which is basically 2 paragraphs. And that makes it a little bit more manageable. If you think about a Toni Morrison, she would write overnight. She would write from like 5 to 7 a.m. You have writers that write from 2 to 5 a.m. But it really is just trying to have that consistency to produce the content, right? And it says, if writing is easy, you're doing it wrong, right? Because sometimes you do get the snags and you have this great kind of first draft that's garbage, right? I think of Brené Brown, where you have that first draft that you're going to have to let go and then come back with the second draft. And being honest about that, is it the quality? Is it where you want it to be? Now, the goal is not perfection, but is it a good reflection? Again, I love Toni Morrison. If there's a book you really want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it. Right. And we have our stories, we have our ideas, we have these different perspectives that we can share with the world. So you've written. Now comes the fun part, which is the edit. So as I said, I do a lot of editing in Word itself, and then I take it over to Grammarly. If you don't know Grammarly, get to know Grammarly. There's a free side that I use probably most of my writing career. It's been with the Ph.D. that I have to do certain steps and certain things that require the paid Grammarly, but the unpaid work functions really, really well. So for me, I take it, I'll do a paragraph at a time, copy paste, see what they're suggesting, because it can sound one way in your head. And then when you read it, it still sounds that way. And then you put it in Grammarly and they're like, that's not what you said. So I love this tool. I do not write in Grammarly because it will correct every 2 seconds. And it just makes me very self-conscious. I like to just kind of spew it out and then edit it back down. And then once I kind of have a rough first draft or second draft, I'll put it into Grammarly. So once I put it into Grammarly, I'll put it back into Word with those edits, and then I'll have it actually read it out to me. Again, I'll go paragraph by paragraph because maybe it's AN and you put A and D, right? So reading it versus seeing it. Then I will switch to the paid services. So I love Fiverr. You're going to see Fiverr in here about 2 to 3 more times. They are an amazing platform that is so affordable. So with Fiverr, I usually will do a 2 edit process. I'll do the first edit for someone who just kind of does edits. I have a guy that I've used for a couple of different years now. The last time I went to him, he had like a 3-month kind of backlog. So again, once you start building these relationships, sometimes you will have to kind of plan out like, okay, if I know I'm not going to publish until October, let me go ahead and start putting that in May so that if there's a backlog, it's not going to impact my launch, right? So really being serious about that and strategizing that forward. So I'll do a basic edit. And then there was a woman who actually was like a New York Times editor who offered her services on Fiverr. So I did the first initial to kind of catch anything that I didn't catch, that Grammarly didn't catch, that Word didn't catch. And then I sent it over to her for that kind of final polishing. And that process probably took about 2 weeks and maybe cost about $200, right? So again, a minimal investment for creating a better quality end product, right? All right. So as I said before, this is definitely one of my favorite quotes. Have no fear of perfection. You will never reach it. And I think there might be in here one about quotes as well, but errors where it's like you have to shout out those errors that remain in the books, because you think about how many people have edited, how many eyes have been laid on that book, that the error still made it through. So you're not going to have perfection. Knowing that should help you move forward with ease a little bit more. One of my mentors said to me, if you're not ashamed of your first launch, then you waited too long. And I will say that to you, like, don't get stuck in the perfection and every piece has to be beautiful, but you do want it to be a reflection of who you are and quality, because it is going to live on the interweb for many years to come. So now you have your book. Who is your audience? And really getting clear about that. This is where that marketing comes into play. And you don't necessarily need to go hire a marketer on Fiverr, but talk to some of your friends or go YouTube and go see, what are some of the different books out there and the different audiences. And why is this important? We all know Harry Potter, right? There is a reason the name on the book is J.K. Rowling's, because she went and did her research, and boys do not typically read books by girls. Right? So she went and did her research, which is why she did J.K. Rowling's, because it is a little bit, it's what's the word I'm looking for, Rosalind? Ambiguous. It's ambiguous, right? That's the word. It's a little bit more ambiguous. So if you know that you want to write sci-fi on a whole nother level, then you might need to have more of a masculine name than a feminine name, because boys and men don't always buy books by women. So that's where that research, who do you want to target? Another place that you can go to is your local bookstore, be that independent owned or a major brand, and see, like, what do their books look like? What do their titles look like? What sections are they in the bookstore, so that you can better gear yourself towards that particular audience and market. And you want to have that intention out the gate. And here's why it's so important, because you're going to go talk about the design of your book, and they're going to ask you, like, what color do you want? What picture? What's the web font? What's the name? How are you going to market and brand this? And you want it to be consistent all the way across the board. So I'll give you a perfect example. I like red. I mean, I have a red computer. I got a red hard drive. I got red tablets. I got red fingernail polish. Though I don't have favorite colors, I like red. And I remember doing a postcard in red and have these waves in it and golden letters. And I had a brutally honest client. She said, I can't read the lettering. And it deflated me a little bit, because I was like, it's beautiful, but if you can't read it, then it's not reaching your target audience. So you want to be thinking about who is your set demographic, so that you can set the colors, you can pick the pictures. There are more masculine than feminine and more feminine than masculine fonts, and thinking about the name. All of that is going to play into it, so that when you go meet with that book designer, you can say, you can have a vision board of, like, here's kind of what I want it to look like. Here are some pictures that I downloaded. That's especially true for how did I write a book? And I was like, it's a girlfriend talking to another girlfriend. So I want it to be fun and light and easy. With Fiverr, they can't really see who you are. So she sent back a white chick, and I was like, love how it looks, but I need a Black girl on the cover. But I knew I wanted very feminine. I knew who my demographic was in my mind, right? So I was able to convey that information, and it only took maybe 2 attempts to be able to produce this. So the more you know, the more research you've done, it's going to cut down on the amount of time that it takes to get that final project. Again, I told you were going to see Fiverr. I love Fiverr. They will do the Kindle book cover because it's in its own separate platform. It's like I'm learning R, which is coding and statistics. It's like that. Like it's a whole nother level. And if you don't live in that space, you're not going to produce something that's quality. But I also wanted to show you firsthand just some of the pricing ranges. So, we have anywhere from $70 down to $5. Things that I'll look for is how many reviews do they have? What's the feedback on the reviews? How many stars do they have? It's kind of like an Amazon shopping experience, but they're doing services for you. There's so much that you can get. But again, they're going to say to you, what colors do you want? What's your idea for it? And you're going to have to be able to produce that versus going in and saying, I don't know, what do you have? Because that's going to require more edits and a little bit more money. The other thing that I would say is, definitely have your end goal in mind, but maybe there's some flexibility. Maybe there's a way that they put it that you hadn't thought about it before. So being open to that as well. You want to also, as you're in Fiverr, you want to be looking at the hard copy, so the actual book itself, but also you want to be looking at the digital format. So you want to be looking at the KDP format and how they're going to be able to open it on their electronic devices. And is that going to be the same format for the hard copy? So if you ever go and look, my first book, the hard copy looks very different than the electronic because I waited about 5 years in between or 4 years in between to have them done. The text that I used for the digital was no longer available. So I had to have 2 different covers because I wasn't thinking about both aspects of it. I was just thinking about digital. But what I will say to you is think about both, because in order to have those book signings and really get that awareness, you got to have the book. So be looking for both the digital format and how that's going to look, and then also the hard copy. The hard copy, if you have it in the right format, you can actually upload that to Amazon yourself. Whereas the KDP, they're going to have to formatting, they're going to have to put it in that format, and you still upload it, but you can't do that format yourself. So just knowing that. Some other things that I wasn't aware of was this ISBN number. We've all seen it on the back of books. It's that barcode. It puts it into the book system. You can Google it. There's tons of sites. I think Amazon might actually give it to you for free, but I like having my own going in, especially if you're going to write several books or a series. You can usually get like 5 of them for $10, right? But that way you kind of control it and it makes it a little bit more legitimate, and you can sell it to a wider base and audience. And for Amazon KDP, you have to have it. Like you cannot sell a book on their platform without it. So go in there knowing that. And again, if you're going to be doing multiple books in a series, go ahead and buy those out from another company, and that way you can just put it in. So what are some of the companies, or where can you sell your books? Again, there's Amazon KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing. You still have Barnes and Noble. You have Apple Books. There's apps like Hoopla and a few other places where you can actually post your content. Again, I've been with KDP, and I know they're this big monster and they're shutting down all the independent bookstores, but it's so freaking easy. And I had switched to another format, I think books to digital or digital draft to digital, and it was a mess. Like I literally got like $1.50 check after a year of it being up, whereas my flow is a little bit more continuous with Amazon, especially if I post it on social media, and we'll get to that. So thinking about where's the book going to live? Where's it going to get the most access? What is the technology you use? What is the technology that your ideal audience and reader is going to use? And then reaching them in that space, right? It's just marketing and business. Thinking about some of your more traditional publishing houses. So you have Penguin Random House, you have HarperCollins, and then Simon & Schuster, which is owned by CBS. So every time I watch CBS Sunday Morning, they're like, and it's a Simon & Schuster company owned by CBS, right? So, those are the big kind of publishing houses. It's a little bit more challenging. You almost need to be a full-on celebrity in order to really get your foot in the door at those places. But if you start this now, it definitely will put you on the right track. Rosalind said it out the gate. It does allow you to be an expert in your industry. So when I published my first book, I was in Spa Magazine, I was in Massage Magazine, because I had written this content that nobody else had written, right? And so as you are going through this writing process, I wanted to share a few other bonuses. One, I love thesaurus.com because there was one word, I think publish or edit. And I was like, I need another word for this. Another site that I absolutely love, it is continuously up in my document, in my Chrome, is Word Hippo. You can just throw anything in there as long as it's a real word, and it will give you paragraphs of synonyms. So if you're finding that you're continuing to use the same word, that is a great site to be able to not be redundant in your writing. I love Unsplash. So it has beautiful pictures that you can download. And if you go there, you'll see some of those pictures are being used constantly on social media where you're like, oh my goodness, they take such great pictures. And it's like, no, that's from Unsplash. So you can actually download those pictures for free. And if you need a little motivation, November is actually National Novel Writing Month, so nonfiction novels. And there's a whole organization. You sign up probably early October. And I mean, they will inundate you with, let's write, there's writing groups, here's how you can do this, here's how you can do that. It really creates this community around writing. And they literally give you 30 days. So you have to write the novel ideally in the month of November, but it's great motivation. And then they'll do writing groups throughout the year to be able to keep that momentum going. So I wanted to share a few bonuses that you don't feel like you have to figure it all out by yourself. If you wish to be a better writer, write. Like that's the only way that it's going to happen. Stay faithful to the stories in your head. If you think about like a Stephen King or an Alice Walker or a Toni Morrison, where it was, or even James Patterson, where they have these amazing stories in their head that they are able to get out onto paper. I feel like we all have some story to share. It may not be our personal life story, but maybe if you're a photographer, maybe if you're a caterer, maybe if you're in finance, like you have a story to be able to share with the world, and the world is waiting. It's not too late. You're not too old. You're right on time, and you're better than you think you know. And then I want to close with the best way to do it is to do it. So if you want to write the book, then write the book. Like sit down, make the time, put the effort into it. That's the only way that it's going to get written. And don't be afraid of the rejection. And sometimes that rejection may be internal, like, who are you to write this? Like, get those words out. And even if you publish it and 3 people read it and 2 of them are family members, you still got it out into the world, right? So I hope that this was beneficial to you. I wanted to share a little bit of my personal contact information. So I'm on Instagram way more than I should be, at the SpaSOS. And then you can also reach me via email at thespasos@gmail.com. And again, the books are available on Amazon. And with that, I want to open the floor to questions. I'm going to stop sharing and see if we have any questions.
I don't know about everybody else, but I feel motivated now. I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe it ain't. So.
I mean, to be able to sit here and see my books behind me, it's like unreal. And it's great marketing. Like you can give them away on airplanes, and like I made buttons. One was like, oh my God, I love your button. I was like, and here you go. Right. So it's just those little gems that we can do to make the world a better place. But it's so powerful to just kind of see your name in print, to tell your story that's inside of you, and then to be able to make, even if it's not millions, but a few $100 or $1,000 from those words is so powerful and life enhancing.
I love it. Now, I know you talked about the ability to do the book within that November kind of writing month. Is that standard? Is that realistic that you can, get a book done in 1 month?
You can. I have to tell you that How to Write a Book, I think I wrote in 2 weeks. And it literally was like, okay, let me think about what the steps are. Let me start adding a little bit more meat to those steps. And then going to the editors and things like that. So the first 2 weeks was me getting it out of my head onto the paper and the first round of edits. The second 2 weeks was sending it off to the editors to be able to make those adjustments, getting the KDP. And I think I started writing it I had the idea probably in May. I think it was up and ready to go by end of June. So it can be. Now, if you're talking 50,000 words, it's probably going to take you a little bit longer. That's a little bit more intense. But again, it depends on you. There's a great book called The Hour of the Wolf, and it talks about a lot of writers, and I'm one of them. I am up between 2 and 5 o'clock. And that is my best writing time because the house is quiet. I love my son. But when he's up, I kind of have to be engaged and watching and doing and observing, and it doesn't calm my mind. So in those quiet hours, I can crank it out. Now, is that the healthiest when you hear about Thrive and Ariana Huffington and sleeping? But sometimes the stories or the thoughts will wake me up. So I will start with it. Like I said, I've been able to crank out a chapter just talking it out in a night, but it is your time limit. I don't know if you want to put the pressure of 30 days. Maybe you might want to make it 90, but you do want to have some sort of solid deadline. Like, okay, I'm going to start here. 90 days later, I should be, if not ready to publish, then I should be able to send it to the editor. Because the more you drag it out, you're never going to get to the finish line. And sometimes we psych ourselves out with that, oh, it's not perfect, or, it needs to be this, it needs to be that, and it's not. And then it never gets done. And you just think about how many ideas and dreams die inside of people.
I love that. Don't let it die.
Don't let it die in you.
Now, this was a really good question. Any advice or feedback on how to get into stores like a Target or I guess like a Walmart, those kind of things?
You're going to have to hire. So they have specific individuals who negotiate with those stores. Now, if you want to be on that level, it is going to be a financial commitment. So you're going to need to be able to be with that Schuster and Penguin House. So you're going to need to get and my words are totally leaving me. You're going to need to go to a publishing house. You're going to need to get a publisher who will then take the edits and all of those different components. So that is a bigger piece. You can do it, but it is going to be a little bit more time consuming. That's going to be one of those 6 months to a year to be able to write that awesome book. If you think about like Michelle Obama, right? And what was her book, Becoming? Like that, if you think about the writing that she went through, she got the book deal before she had actually written the book, right? And she got paid several $1 million because of that celebrity status. And then they want to put it on the shelves. But book sales, a lot of book sales are coming from independent book houses and Amazon. So when you're thinking Target may not be a big enough audience, and then there's also negotiation that you have to go through with pricing. So you are going to need to hire outside help to be able to get into those box stores. And they have those individuals available. And it's going to be your publishing houses that have those connections and the editors and the publishers. But great question.
I think that's a great question, but definitely it kind of brings back to another question someone has about the amount of money. So if you're saying you just want to do maybe an online book, or maybe you're going to have a few printed, taking into account the editors and so forth with Fiverr and such, what's a good estimate to get from start to finish?
I'd say put at least $500 aside. And you can work up to that. You can negotiate, like you saw from Fiverr, you can go from $5 to $500, depending on their expertise for one individual. What I would say is really read those reviews the same way you would on Amazon, because you want a quality edit. So like I said, I do the 2 edits. I do like the lower level one and then the higher level one, knowing that the lower level one I might be able to get for $50. The higher level might be $250, but I want to really have that editor eyes on it to be able to make those adjustments that I need to really put it out there and have it be a good reflection of who I am. The other piece is going to be that KDP publishing component of it. And again, that can fluctuate from $30 to $300, just depending. Also thinking of your timeline, that's going to be one of the most important parts. So when you sit down to write, thinking about like, when do I want to kind of get this out to the world? One, because that helps. I mean, research has shown having a deadline helps you get it done. So if you're saying, okay, I want to have this, it's going to be a holiday book. So for holiday books, you probably need to have that done by May, because then you need to make sure that it's able to be printed and published, that you're going to those different shows to be able to have those individuals who buy the books, that it can get on their shelves. And that usually is distributed by August, September at the latest, so that they can have that on their shelves by the end of October, beginning of November, ready for the holiday season. So you're talking about finance and business, you really do have to have this business mind. Or maybe you just want it to be Christmas gifts, right? Maybe it's a photo album and some kind words for the family members. Again, thinking about the time that we're living in, just some of the issues with deliveries, shortage on paper, all of those things, give yourself the time to be able to do it. I'll go back to that imposter syndrome. So I had signed up for the book signing, and just the whole fear and everything, I didn't request the books in time to be able to do the book signing. So I speak to this from experience, like give yourself time and allotment so that the product can be there, so that you can promote it. And I mean, you want to have that hard and soft copy so you can promote it on places like YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, so that can get out there. And I find that every time I post it, when I get that email from KDP, it's bigger. So, you have to know how to do that self-promotion, getting the word out there about your book. Did I answer your question? I would say about a solid $500. It can go up and down depending on your selection, and the steps that you choose.
Now that's a good question. Someone just dropped in. They said, how often do you get those emails? Is it just like pay period, like every first of the month, every 2 weeks?
It fluctuates. I know I get one at least once a month. And let me say this, they are not stellar, right? They're not like these $1,000 checks. let me be crystal clear. But they go into a separate savings account that I don't touch. So it just that interest continues to add and add and add. It depends on the pricing. It depends on your royalties. The average book on Amazon Prime is probably about $2.99. So, unless you're selling thousands of them, you're not going to get this $200 check. So I'm not ashamed to get a 31-cent deposit in my account, because my grandmother told me a little bit of something beat a whole lot of nothing. And I didn't get into it for the money. I really got into it because I felt like the industry needed this kind of insight and perspective. I also have been slacking in my promotion. So thank you for the reminder. I need to promote it again. When I promoted on Instagram, and my girlfriends were buying it, friends, family, everybody was buying it, then you definitely see the revenue goes up. When you are not promoting it, the revenue goes down. So it will, what you get out of it a lot of times is what you put into it. If you have like a 300-page book, then yes, you're going to have to charge a little bit more for that. But then you got to think about, what is it going to cost to publish to be able to sell that out of a book signing? So be realistic in the goals that you're setting. It's kind of like when I was a massage therapist and teacher, and they're like, oh my God, I'm gonna graduate and make $100,000 in the first month. No, you're not. And the same is going to be true with the book. Like if you're going to go with Target and that pricing, you probably need to have $10,000 to $20,000 set aside to publish a book, because that's a whole different ball game, right? Unless they're giving you some sort of advance. But again, that usually requires celebrity status. So it really is going to depend on you and how much you put into it. My checks, again, can range from, I want to be honest, and it could actually cost more than that. Like it could be $50,000 to $100,000, right? But if you get that celebrity status, that's why you'll see people who are like, oh, my book is dropping in 3 months. And they're kind of getting those advanced sales. And that's also the trick to get on the New York Times bestseller list, right? Because if you can do those advanced sales, those go towards the total number, right? So you want to have that insight and that perspective and that professional to walk you through. Again, that is not my, what is it? That's not my space. There's a professional word, wheelhouse. That's not my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is definitely self-publishing. I'm pretty familiar with that one because I did want to have the control. And I knew that I wanted to have a different kind of voice and say in the game versus the traditional. Now, the next book that I'm working on is a much more traditional. It's not traditional, but it is going to be a thicker text. And I do want to go more of traditional publishing. But the good thing is I will have had 3 books under my belt by the time I walk to that. And I do plan to have a PhD behind my name as well. And there's just, there's things that you can do if you look at the celebrities. So like Viola Davis is coming out with a memoir. But if you're following her, she's telling you about her life and different things that are coming up. And she has an opinion where you want to read that book the same way we wanted to read Becoming. And she was out doing the book shows and engaging. All of that adds to those book sales. So keep all of that in mind as you are, starting on this journey. And just because you start with self-publishing doesn't mean that you have to end there. And just because you pay $500 for the first book doesn't mean you won't get paid $5 million for your last book or next book. So, there's no set and true only way to do it.
I think that makes a lot of sense. So Danielle, I know you said, whoo, like, don't be alarmed. You can get started.
Don't be alarmed. I don't crush anybody's dreams. But if you do want to go that traditional route, it is going to cost you more out of pocket, especially if you're just kind of a traditional location. There's a site I follow on Instagram called Row House. And they really do kind of focus on small women, African-American writers, kind of non-traditional. I think it would be great to follow them, kind of get the insight because they do more traditional publishing. So, you can have your feet in both and see, which one serves you better. But great questions though.
Now, this one, do you have to print it or can it just be an online book?
Absolutely. You don't have to print it. Oh, and you asked about the cost of printing the book. So for Amazon, you actually get a writer's discount. So what it's sold for is not what I paid to buy it to be able to sell it. It's like a third of the original cost. But if you don't want to have the hard copy, there's no hard or fast way. I don't have a hard copy of my first book. I try and every time I try, it doesn't work. So I have the second 2, but I don't have the first one in a hard copy. And it is just that way. The other thing that I will say, and, not the whole, people are like, oh, I want to take you to lunch. I want to pick your brain kind of thing, but don't be afraid to give it away. So I do a lot of speaking at shows, and I had someone who was like, oh my God, I only have an iPad. It doesn't work with this. Is there any way you could send me the book? I have a PDF of it. And I'm like, here you go. Like, it's $2.99. My royalties are much less than that. But for someone who is going to be like, oh, wow, she really cares, she gave me her book, right? So don't be afraid. Don't give them all away. But there may be those instances, or you could do raffles, or you could do scholarships, you could do donations, but don't be afraid to kind of introduce it by giving it away.
I think that's a really good point, kind of part of the overall promotion.
Absolutely.
And then lastly, I know you talked about promoting the book and some of the ways that you've promoted it, but how do you get to some of those book signings? Do you just go to a Barnes & Noble or just go to a bookstore or coffee house and say, hey, can I have a signing here? How do you actually get those signings scheduled and on the books?
I don't know if you'll be able to do Barnes & Noble because they tend to go to the big dogs, right? Like thinking about your audience, but independent bookstores are really making a comeback. And that might even be something you say, like, I would love to have a book signing here. I can, we can partner together on the social media. We could do a raffle and we can give a couple of books away to be able to get people in the doors. As a business owner, the one thing I learned is do not be afraid of no, it will not kill you. So go talk, go ask me. I'm a little bit more blessed. My girlfriend actually owns owned the shop where I went and did the book signing, but she has books in there. It's not uncommon for her to have those. So if you have something that's a little bit more boutique or niche-y, she has a place in Baltimore called Flourish. Check it out on 25th Street. I'm doing a serious plug. But she does that on a pretty regular and consistent basis. But I've also known her for maybe, 20 years. But like tap into your resources, right? We're all in the business of relationships. You might be surprised who knows. The other thing that I would say and why it's so important is you want to have a professional mock-up of that book, because you could put that puppy on LinkedIn. To really show your expertise, especially if it's an industry book. Love Lost and True Found will never be on LinkedIn. Never. But how to write a book? Absolutely, because it shows my expertise. So using your social media, looking at the different spaces that are around you. Could you rent a space? Can you have it in conjunction with someone else? Are there festivals? Are there events that are going on where you can get a table and be able to sell your books there? Can you bundle it with some shea butter? Like you're going to have to get creative. And how you get it out there. Like, don't just think straight and narrow, but if there's different events or, it's getting ready to be cherry blossom season in DC, they have tables and different things. Can you get out there and have those different experiences? I think that's the best way. Like you have social media, have that professional mock-up of the book that you can put on social media, have the link, have your friend, like sometimes you might have to give the book away so people can write good reviews on Amazon. So I have a girlfriend who wrote a book. She gave me her book. I gave her my book, and then we exchange reviews, right? So it doesn't always have to be this financial investment. It could definitely be you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. But being willing to, not give the whole house away for free, but if that's what it's going to take to get those reviews, that social media, sending it to radio stations, college radio stations in particular, they're always looking for additional content that maybe is related to something that's happening currently or a hot topic. And then really just getting creative in how you put that content out there.
I think that's really good. I hope everybody's motivated. Like,
write your book. Write a book.
And then buy How to Write a Book as well on Amazon.
Please, so I can get my little royalty check. But it's kind of like real estate and investing, right? Like you're doing it for the long haul. Like as I said, I didn't get into this for the royalties from the book. They are an added bonus in that my son doesn't send emails. So maybe when he sends me his first email, that might be my favorite email. But until such time, is KDP. So, you and how you price it and once you become a real expert or you become, you look at like a Tabitha Brown, right? She's the perfect example where she did the TikTok videos, the Instagram videos, which then led to the TV shows, which then led to the book deal, which then, she pre-sold it, which led to the New York Times bestseller list. And now she's traveling and speaking and doing the book signing. So that is, when they come out for you and they give you that, that book signing deal, that's ideal, but you really have to be on the radar in order to get those kind of deals. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay out of pocket. And there's nothing the matter with that. But make sure, like if you were opening any other kind of business, you want to make sure that you have a reliable, insightful team that knows what they're doing to be able to support you and not just, doing the okie doke and pulling the wool over your eyes and taking your money. So, you want to vet whichever process you go through.
I love it. I hope everybody, I want to read everybody's book. So if you're just watching this for the first time and don't know me, I'm a huge reader. I think I'm probably on my 10th or 11th book so far this year. I haven't even posted all of them. I usually share.
You are a beast. I don't know. I'm reading articles. I don't read books anymore. I'm taking a book hiatus because I'm reading research articles, but you inspire me. I'm like, she read another book.
And I got some more to post. So I always get recommendations. So if you write a book, let me know and put it on the list. My list is probably like 100 books long. So it might be next year. And I'm like, finally read book. But if you read a book, I love to support. I love local writers. I love writers that I know. I know someone who just wrote a book and I pre-purchased her book. I don't know when it'll show up. So can't wait. I'll put that on the shelf with all the other books I need to read. So I am excited for what is to come. And I am so thankful for Sherrie today to share her knowledge and make it attainable. Because I know somebody was probably out there like, Danielle, don't worry. It is still within reach.
It can be done. It can be done, but it's just kind of nice to know what that end goal is. The other thing, there's a site that I follow on Instagram. I think it's called Black Girls Write. And it's all like Black authors. And I'm sure they can share a little bit more insight because they seem to do more traditional publishing as well. So again, it's like, which train is the right train for you? Not every train is going to get you to where you want to be. So, the more you talk to people, the more you see, the more you'll have an insight and idea of where is it you want to go.
I love it. And so you're going to win the lottery, but you don't need to win the lottery because you're going to write some amazing books.
Exactly. And then I would say promote it on social media, just the way Tabitha Brown is. If you have a really unique platform, it's the consistency, it's showing up and doing that on a regular basis where you don't have to win the lottery. They'll come for you. I mean, that's what I said with my next book. I'm like, they're going to come for me. I'm not going to have to go out here. They're going to come to me and I get to choose my next book publishing deal. So you can create that, but it's going to be the effort from you, the voice, creating something, creating your niche, and making it happen.
I love it. So let me know, because I'm reading them all. Let me know. I'm reading all the books. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, everybody who joined. Be sure to join us next Monday at the same time, because we are on this journey together and you are customizing what your financial independence looks like. And so until next time, have a good night.